Good morning, albeit late morning in Los Angeles. Welcome to My Left Ear. This is a liberal YouTube channel devoted to the election of Kamala Harris and her VP candidate, Tim Walz. It's called My Left Ear because I get intuition and psychic hits through my left ear, this side. This is video 219. It's August 24th. And I have to remember to say, please subscribe and like, because it helps us. The black blob right here is Freeman, and he doesn't know that you can't see his face. So I'm gonna do this for a second so you can see him. There he is. But then if you see him, you can't see me, and it is my show. He's my co-host, but he moves and changes direction, positions, all during the show, and so we'll probably get to see more of him in a few minutes. All right, we're going to jump in here. I am really going to talk about the Democratic National Convention today. It was so glorious that I think it's worth just reviewing some things. And I'll tell you the truth, you know, Mercury is still retrograde till the 27th. My television died. Just all kinds of communication things happened during a Mercury retrograde. And when I went to do the runes, I had about 3, maybe 4 questions, and they were coming out weird. That's all I can say. There's that word again, weird. But today the runes are weird, and I just didn't feel good because I was getting the same runes over and over again. But I got one reading that I really liked. So I'm going to share it with you. And it's the first one. I asked the runes, and here are the runes. I asked the runes, within 2 years, will we reverse Roe v. Wade? And so let me share with you what I got. I'll put my little glasses on here. I got protection in the reversed position, and it comes in the form of advice because the runes are rarely super negative. There's maybe one that's, you know, pretty negative, but here it is. Protection reversed. Be thoughtful and pay attention to your health, and do not add to the burdens of others. Look carefully at the associations you form at this time. If you find yourself involved with people who are using you, be conscious of that and take responsibility. And don't get too invested whether your enterprise prospers or suffers, etc., etc. But then I got fertility. And fertility is about new beginnings. It is akin, there he is, he's changing position. It's akin to the moon, the intuitive part of our nature with its urge towards harmonizing and adjusting in the sphere of personal relationships. It may mark a time of joyful deliverance. Joyful deliverance, because you know what he's doing? He's chasing a fly. He's obsessed with flies, so God knows what's going to happen. It may mark a time of joyful deliverance. And these words are very interesting. Joyful deliverance, joyful warrior. It is a rune of great power, and it says you now have the strength to achieve completion or resolution, which opens up your new beginnings. And then there's a little more here because it gets better and better. It also signals an emergence from a closed chrysalis state, which is what's going on now with our abortion rights and choice and women's health care. It says you also may need to release a relationship habit or rut. And that would be releasing the GOP. That would be releasing the ban on Roe v. Wade. This rune is the limitless energy of the seed, whether it is the seed of an idea or the seed of planting. the energy held within this small kernel of a seed is boundless. We like that. Boundless. So the tiny acorn becomes a mighty oak, and will codify that mighty oak. Okay, that's my symbolism right there. It's the energy of beginnings and new births. That's odd, isn't it? Where birth must become a choice. But these runes have these symbolic words attached that I find very interesting. It also epitomizes one of my favorite phrases: life finds a way. Changes in the offing, people. Changes in the offing. Remember that it takes time for the energy of a seed to be released. So it advises be prepared and be centered. Await your deliverance. There's another birth metaphor, with calm certainty. And that rune of fertility has no reversal. Now we get to the last rune on this, which is just great. Joy. Joy. We've been hearing that word a lot, haven't we? But I picked the rune of joy. It's the rune of joy and light. It is a fruit-bearing branch. It speaks of happiness, of things finally coming together. And the book says when joy appears in your casting, you can be assured that a positive result that brings joy to your heart is in the offing. So this rune is emblematic of new clarity and understanding for you in your current situation. Of course, that means all of us, because I'm reading for all of us. You are ready to open your arms and your emotions to the joy. It looks really good. It looks really good. But I gave it 2 years because this kind of thing doesn't happen overnight. But this just lit me up, okay? And the idea that, you know, joyful warriors, joy, 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 and I picked joy. So that's really wonderful. Now I want to comment on my shirt. I'm wearing the shirt in honor of our soon-to-be Vice President, Tim Walz. And I have had this shirt for maybe, I don't know, 30 years, 35 years. I happen to like it a lot. I don't think I've worn it on this channel before, but my God, this is the Tim Walz, you know, shirt. And I'm proud to have it. And it's so great that I never threw it away. And I think I got it in, you know, a vintage store or a secondhand store. I think I paid $3. It's very cozy. I hope you like it. Now, I'm just going to go in on, I was moved, you might not like it, but I was moved to celebrate the joy today of the DNC because it was spectacular. You know, it's kind of going to sound like I'm bragging. I apologize. But, you know, I've worked in this area of live televised events over and over in my life. And this DNC was so well conceived and directed and executed. And if there's any criticism, that maybe they crammed a little too much in each day. I'm just saying maybe, but all of it was really good. Had I been, you know, the producer or the director, I might have taken out a couple of people, but I don't, or not people, but musical numbers. But I'm not going to say which ones because I'll get a nasty letter. And I don't want any nasty letters. I've had too many of them lately. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over what I think were some of the highlights. But here's what I want to say. I'm probably going to miss out on some of your favorite moments because how could I possibly please thousands of people? I can't. But here what you can do, you can drop me a note and say, you know, you left out this, and man, I loved that moment, or I loved that presentation. So share it with me. This is just my perceptions, okay? So I'm starting with President Joe Biden. because he was the first night. And this is really kind of out of order. I tried to give it some semblance of logic, but it's a little bit out of order. So Joe Biden, here's what popped out to me. First of all, his daughter Ashley's introduction, what a beautiful young woman, was classy and wonderful and full of joy. And when she came out, she said, Joe Biden is the OG girl dad. And I thought that was great. And then she introduced him, he came out, and they hugged for 30 seconds. And I watched it. And then he reached for either a Kleenex or a real handkerchief, and he had to dab up his tears. He was so touched by his daughter in the moment. And you know what? I cried thinking about it. It was a beautiful moment. And Joe didn't disappoint. What a tower of a man. Now I'm going to move on to Kamala Harris, our next president. And this is what I liked. And of course, these are all short, so I'm just picking out like little gems that I think are gems, are very important. She was talking about Trump. And she essentially said this. This is not exactly verbatim, but it's almost verbatim. They want to limit access to birth control. They want to ban medication abortion. They want to enact a nationwide abortion ban. And they want to appoint an anti-abortion coordinator to force states to report miscarriages and abortions. And then she paused and she said, they're out of their minds. And the whole place went up for grabs. They're out of their minds. And I love this because this simplicity of communication is really working. Like they're weird. You know, that isn't this elegant with, you know, a 10-letter word. It's they're weird. And she said, in terms of all of these abortion bans, rules that are so draconian, they're out of their minds, and the place went nuts. So I loved that moment. I loved that it was so down to earth. You'd say it around your coffee table or your kitchen dinner. They're out of their minds. And I'll never forget, they're out of their, and you know what? They are. They are. All right, moving on. Now, the soon-to-be vice president, Tim Walz, the coach, when he entered, because he has a very energetic way of moving and walking, and, you know, he's always gesticulating, a very animated guy. And when they played John Mellencamp's song, I Was Born in a Small Town, I went, oh my God, who picked that? That was just like fabulous. I loved it. And it was, this is the best of my understanding, that it was the first time Tim Walz used a teleprompter. You know, that's pretty amazing. So he had a couple of lines, and one of them was, never underestimate a public school teacher. And that got a, you know, that got a rise out of the audience. Everybody loved that. And then on the subject of freedom, he said, this is just so to the point, friends, your kid's freedom to go to school without being shot dead in the hallway. And then he said, our first responsibility to keep our kids safe, it is our first responsibility to keep our kids safe. And evidently, my least favorite governor on the planet, Greg Abbott, doesn't think so. Because nothing happened to all the Uvalde policemen who were afraid to enter a room and save children. And so anyway, you know, his comments on freedom, he's just so relatable. He's so great. And I love all his coaching metaphors. They're perfect. Now, there was something at the beginning, I think this was the first night, where they ran a video all about COVID, but it was focused on Donald Trump and how he didn't handle, I want to say how he handled it, but he didn't handle it. He talked about it, but he didn't handle it. He didn't do anything that corrected it, helped it. So many people died on his watch, but this video was great. And it just, every frame was him saying, oh, it's going to be over in a week. Oh, it's nothing. And then at the end of it, when he was being pushed by a reporter to really be accountable, he said, it is what it is. And that was his full sociopathy coming out. It is what it is. Ugh. But I liked it, and it was sharp, and it was cutting, so I wanted to mention that. Now, like I said, I'm out of order here. I'm now going to talk about, I'm going to say her name slowly. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I did it. She, of course, is the New York Democrat, and she blasted Trump, of course. She had it was a 7-minute speech she gave, and she had not been given that time before. She'd been given like 90 seconds in prior years. And she called Trump a 2-bit union buster. And in the same breath, she gave the progressive stamp of approval to Vice President Kamala Harris. It was lovely. And the speech earned AOC the admiration of Democratic leaders more than ever before, who are beginning to view her about like they're thinking more about her political future. Now, some of her highly progressive people in that posse were not happy with her. I'm just reporting that. But she hit a home run. One of the things that really blew people away and got people moving and shaking was the roll call. That was a hip hop musical roll call. I mean, like, who thought of that? It was highly creative, energizing, entertaining. And one thing I know from growing up in this family where my dad was a performer, my grandmother was a performer, is I learned that people really won't pay attention if you're not a little bit entertaining, maybe a lot entertaining. They just tune out. And so somebody was so smart in keeping this for 4 nights, 4 nights, entertaining. So smart. So I can't say enough. People will turn off and tune out if you're not entertaining, no matter how good the things that you are saying. I loved Hakee Jeff because it came out and he started a speech and he's very commanding, and I'm so excited about him taking over the House as Speaker. But his speech ended up kind of going into a hip hop rhythm, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He'd rehearsed it, I could tell, and he was like, and this, and this, and this, or this. I can't remember whether he used both fingers, but it had so much rhythm to it. It was so cool, and I could tell he was having a really good time. Well, later I found out he's a big fan of hip hop. Big fan. Well, he really pulled it off, and I'd like to see him rap. I really would. I'd like to see Hakee Jeff rap and run Congress. That's what I want to see. Now we get to the incredible Michelle Obama. And I was first blown away when she walked out and I saw that amazing ponytail that some brilliant stylist put, and I went, whoa, not too many people could rock that hairpiece the way she did, but it was really great. She just looked fabulous. So I'm quoting her now. For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. His limited and narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who also happened to be black. And then she said the best line, by the way, who's going to tell Trump the presidency is a black job? And of course, everybody went up and were howling about that. So then she finishes her, which some people say like the greatest speech of the whole DNC. She was really do something. She introduced her husband, the love of my life, Barack Obama, and he came out with that cool walk that he has, tall, lean, and maybe one of the most beautiful suits I've ever seen. For a minute, I just like, wow, that suit was fabulous. And of course, he wears clothes really well. And he leans over and he goes, I'm all feeling fired up. I'm feeling fired up. And then everyone went, yay! And he got cheers. And then, of course, the funniest moment for me, because, you know, I grew up with punchlines and comedy and timing, was when he just threw this out there. And, you know, this weird obsession on crowd size. And his hands went like this, and he looked at them for a minute, and then he got the biggest laugh. And I thought Sigmund Freud would be very proud of this joke. Loved it. So Barack and Michelle and Barack just were fabulous. They really brought it. And of course, they would. Do you know what I mean? Like, what else? Elizabeth Warren got a rousing welcome. She was very touched by it, reminding you that she's senator from Massachusetts, and she took aim at Trump, of course, and she just said plain out, he has no plan to lower costs for families. She went on to say he doesn't know how, and basically he really doesn't care, she said. Then she went on, when did Trump ever fill up a gas tank or worry about a grocery bill? The only bills he worries about are from his criminal defense lawyers. And that's pretty true. So Elizabeth Warren was great, and it was wonderful to see her so touched and emotional. Now I'm going to go to, we've got some really good offspring of these candidates. You know, not just the young Congress people like Maxwell Frost, but so Cole Mhof, son of our soon-to-be first gentleman, Doug. He came out, and first of all, he's so adorable. He looks like a little doppelganger of his father. He's just so damn cute. But what I was struck by, a lot of people came out that had never spoken to such a large amount of people, which I'm telling you, that's intimidating. But like a lot of these offspring, you know, like Ashley Biden, just came out like they've been doing it their whole lives. I mean, so much poise and so articulate. So that was Cole. So he delivered a confident and great introduction to his father. And then he put together a wonderful video about Doug, because a lot of people haven't heard him talk much or anything. And this was produced by him and his biological mother. And you probably know they're all a one big happy family. And Doug and his sister Ella feel they have two mothers, and their bio mother, Kirsten, is totally on board. She loves Kamala, and she was there. It's a very close, blended family. And I just want to say, Cole is a little mini Doug. And then there's Doug. So he introduces his father, and Doug comes out looking fabulous and doesn't He doesn't look nervous. And I found Time magazine has an article, I don't know which, it must be really recent, like this week, and the title of it is The Doug Mhof Model of Masculinity. Because he's willing and loves being married to this woman, and he loves this woman, we could tell that, who's, you know, going to be the leader of the free world. And he's not threatened. He's just, okay, let's roll up our cuffs and let's see what we can do. He's all in. So he's historical. And he talked about his romance with Kamala and their first blind date. And she reported the same thing, that when they finally spoke on the phone, he was really awkward. When he left her a message at 8:30 in the morning, he was nervous and he was talking too much, and it was so sweet. So Doug is smart, elegant, humorous, comfortable, confident, and I don't know if you know this, but he was a very successful entertainment attorney in Los Angeles at one point, and he walked away from all of it. And I don't think it was easy. I do not think it was easy for him. But now he's in a whole new world. Oprah Winfrey was not announced, and people were, you know, very excited to see her. Chicago, that's where she did the Oprah show for so many years. She was, you know, lived in Chicago. And she, at some point in her speech, I think the first she said, "Who says you can't go home again?" which is a Bon Jovi song. I love that song. But during the speech, she said, "I'm an independent." And one thing I noticed, because of doing the hypnotherapy, repetition is really great, especially when it's used for the positive, to really, I can't think of the word right now, but really implore the ideas so they get locked into the brain. So she repeated a lot, and people didn't really notice it, I don't think, but because of my profession, I noticed, and I went, that's great. She's repeating her key points to emphasize. Really smart. So she said, there are people who want you to see our country as a nation of us against them. People who want to scare you, who want to rule you. People who'd have you believe that books are dangerous and assault rifles are safe. Best line. And there's a right way to worship and a wrong way to worship. I got that mixed up for a minute, but she's saying that there are people who say there's a right way to worship and a wrong way to worship. And she's saying, no, there's not. No, there's not. And also a right way to love and a wrong way to love. No, there's not. Look at Pete Buttigieg and his family. And then she said, there are people who seek first to divide and then to conquer. But here's the thing. When we stand together, it is impossible to conquer us. So she did great. You know, she's had a lot of experience with writing and speaking, and she's great. She's great. And she pulled it together. It was not a long speech at all. It was so economical, nothing wasted. And Reverend Al Sharpton, who I've come to really like a lot because I see him a lot on the TV shows, and he's just full of knowledge, wisdom, history, and common sense. And he's very articulate. And I just went crazy when he brought out the Central Park Five. So for those who don't know, and I think a lot of people know, in 1989, 5 teenagers were wrongfully convicted of raping a woman in Central Park. She survived, but barely. After spending anywhere from 6 to 13 years in prison, a serial rapist confessed to the crime. Now, in the meantime, when these boys were first arrested and they were quite young, Donald Trump, the New Yorker, called for their execution, and he put it on the front of a newspaper. And when they were released and found not guilty, he never apologized. He never mentioned it. And this is one of the ugliest things I think he's ever done. The guy can't be wrong. But that was a big deal. Now then, there were former Republicans there. Olivia Troy, who worked for Mike Pence, who's, I don't know if she's, I think she's left the Republican Party, but she's all in for Kamala Harris. And Olivia's very well-spoken, very experienced. I've always enjoyed her. Stephanie Grisham, who used to be friends with Melania Trump, and that broke. She was the former press secretary. And they both just spoke truths, and they spoke about actual dialogue and things that came out of Trump's mouth when they were in the room with him, that he called the people that love him basement dwellers. They were witness to that. And then there was Jeff Duncan, former lieutenant governor of Georgia and a Republican. And here's what Jeff Duncan said. I tell you, I really think it takes a lot of guts for any former Republican to come out and do this. He said, "I realized Trump was a direct threat to democracy, and his actions disqualified him from ever stepping foot in the Oval Office again." And Duncan went on and said that his message wasn't for the Democrats in the room, but rather for the Republicans and independents. Okay? He went on, "If Republicans are being intellectually honest with themselves, ourselves, our party is not civil or conservative. It's chaotic and crazy, and the only thing left to do is dump Trump. These days, our party acts more like a cult worshiping a felonious thug." He was just inspirational and rousing and gutsy. And then we all know Adam Kinzinger, who was part of the January 6th investigation, and he left Congress. And so I'm quoting him now. "Donald Trump is a weak man pretending to be strong. He is a small man pretending to be big. He is a fatherless man pretending to be righteous. He's a perpetrator who can't stop playing the victim." Right now, I didn't write it down, but I'm reminded of Barack Obama saying, "This billionaire who does nothing but complain and play the victim." I kind of forgot to put that in, but put billionaire victim. That was Barack Obama. And now we're coming to the end of Carrie's favorites. And I know there are people I haven't mentioned. Please don't at me. There's only so much time here. 17-year-old Gus Walls, crying and saying, "That's my dad." That was so moving to me. I cried also. I just thought it was so beautiful. And then, of course, I was so horrified at the ugly remarks that came out. And it led me to what I'm going to title this particular video, that the GOP is the party of sociopaths. Now that sounds like just a glib little thing that I wrote, but I'm dead serious. It's not just a clever little phrase, if it is. They are, because I think I didn't put this in the typing. Yeah, there's a woman who said, what's her name? Oh, Lily Gaddis, Gaddis. And she posted on Twitter about it was a video or a photograph of Gus standing up and saying, "That's my dad." And she said, "Get ready, you're not going to like this, people. Retards should be seen and not heard." And I just found out that Gus has some learning issues, but at the same time is a very smart young man. I don't know too much about this. You'd have to read. It has to do with learning, but he can learn. You know, it's a special kind of condition. And strangely, comedian Chris Rock came out and said, "I actually have this affliction." Fascinating, right? You wouldn't think that about Chris Rock, except I've been around Chris Rock, and he's very much an introvert. This is true of a lot of comedians, by the way. Very introverted. So I love that he came out and said this. Bless Gus Walls, and he's getting a lot of support. So Gus is a special young man. I loved Stevie Wonder. First of all, Stevie Wonder looked fantastic. But when he just spoke before the music, oh, I just thought he was beautiful. I just thought he was wonderful. I loved the Chicks singing. It was wonderful to hear them and hear those harmonies. And they're no longer called the Dixie Chicks. They're the Chicks. I loved Pink and her daughter singing, her daughter Willow. And I really got a kick out of Kenan Thompson from Saturday Night Live coming out with this giant Project 2025 book. And he just handled the humor of it beautifully. He got a lot of laughs. And now I'll tell you this really quick story, because Pink was on stage with her daughter singing. Her daughter, I don't know, her daughter's getting big, growing up. But years ago when I worked in Malibu at that rehab I told you about, I would sometimes go to Pavilions Market before work, after work, and I went after work to pick up some things, and I stood in line, and there was a woman in front of me, kind of close to my height, maybe an inch taller, because I'm not tall. I'm 5'2" barely. And all of a sudden, I kind of looked at her from the side and went, "Oh my goodness, it's Pink." Pink, pregnant, with no makeup, and she had an assistant helping her with groceries. So here's where being mature comes in very helpful, because people tend to be very respectful. You can kind of get away with things that maybe other people can't. So without her seeing my face, because I was standing really close, I said I didn't get near her ear. I want you to know that. I didn't do any bad personal space things, but I was standing behind her and I just said this: "I cannot stand here and not tell you how much I love your work." And she whipped around and looked at me and she said, "Thank you." And she put out her hand and she said, "My name is Alicia," which is her given name. And we talked for a moment, and she had the belly, and of course I don't touch women's bellies when they're pregnant. I said, "How are you feeling? How's it going?" And she goes, it's going really good. I feel really good." And that was Willow and her belly. So I couldn't help but think about it when I saw them sing. And Pink appears to have a wonderful relationship with her children. She keeps them close. They travel with her. So I love Pink. And I have seen her. I saw her at the Staples Center, and she flew. You know, she does the aerial stuff, and she was flying all over the top of that Staples Center and above us, and it was very exciting. She's amazing. So now we come to a few quotes. And I just found this morning, and I'm sharing it with you. And I think the woman who wrote this quote was probably talking about romantic relationships, but I thought of Trump immediately. So think of Trump when I share this quote with you. Here it is. If you walked away from a toxic, negative, abusive, one-sided, dead-end, low vibrational relationship, you won. It's good, isn't it? You won. And it was a woman named Layla Delia. Layla Delia. And I haven't heard of that name before. And then I found a gorgeous quote by Chef Jose Andres. I wonder if we pronounce the S at the end of Andres, or is it Andre? You might know this, so it just hit me. What a beautiful man. So he said, longer tables, not higher walls. Give away the dignity you want to receive. Give empathy to everyone on the way. Give the respect everyone deserves. Give love away. You will have no regret. Wish to others you don't know the same you wish to your own. And dream a better way. Isn't that gorgeous? Wow. And you know, I can't, in terms of good evidence, I can't top what the DNC did. It left us all on a, well, you know, not all of us, but it left you and I on a real high and gave us a huge injection of energy and, yes, hope and joy. So good evidence was the effect of the Democratic National Convention this week. That's what I want to say. So I'm doing this in the morning, and it's been beautiful, and I haven't had to turn on my air conditioning, but now I'm getting really warm in this shirt, so I'm signing off, and I'm going to throw off the shirt and stand in front of a fan. I'll see you soon. I'm preparing a Patreon. I have not forgotten about my Patreon people, but I really needed this week to just absorb it all and not be reporting every day or commenting every day. And I have to think maybe that was a relief, you know, because I think sometimes people can come on too often, and I think a lot of things can be condensed. So I hope you missed me a little bit, and I will talk to you soon. Let's just see what Petey has to say. Well, he's got his back to you. Hey, Pete, you want to show your face? Oh, thank you. See, he does talk to me, does respond. Just show your face, babe. Come on, boy. Everybody wants to see your face. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm an abusive mom. So when I sat down to do this today, I didn't know where he was. I thought maybe he was under the sofa. And all I did was say, Petey, it's time to do a video. And I just tapped on the desk. And he came out and said, what do you want? And I said, well, can I get up here? We got a show to do. And so he did. I love it. Do you? Anyway, have a good day. Have a good weekend. It's the next 2 months will be a wild ride, but I feel that we're all filled with confidence. And I cannot fathom a way that Donald Trump wins this. But we don't get cocky. We just work and work and work. So we've got a very interesting 2 months ahead of us. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.